Or shot fire, officer down, shot fire, officer down. Got a city officer down, shot fire.
223, be advised, we have a visual on enemy paratroopers in grid Papa uniforms.
Welcome to the Resilient Warrior Nation, a podcast dedicated to inspiring hope and healing for first responders, military veterans, and anyone facing PTSD and trauma. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Resilient Warrior Nation podcast. I'm your host, Mike Morgan, and welcome to the podcast that was created for first responders and veterans to help them heal and give inspiration for them as they go through PTSD and various traumas. I essentially want to do what was done for me by Sean Ryan and his podcast when he spoke to Eddie Penny, a former Navy SEAL. This is his company. This is not a proclamation. Eddie Penny literally changed the entire trajectory of my life after watching that podcast. So I want to do it same thing, pay it forward and do it for others. Tonight, I am pumped to speak to my guest, Pasquale Sementilli. The subject matter itself is horrendous, but it's such a valuable podcast, and it is needed by many, many men who have suffered what Pasquale has gone through himself. So Pasquale is a medically retired 9-year veteran of the NYPD who worked in the 7-5 precinct in East New York, where he was assigned to Midnight Patrol, and who also worked in the anti-crime unit. Pasquale was born in Italy and immigrated to the U.S. with his family at the age of 3. Pasquale has been married and divorced twice and is both a father and a grandfather. Pasquale was sexually abused as a 9-year-old boy by his 20-year-old neighbor and is showing immense courage by telling others about his story in an effort to help anyone that is going through the incredible waters that he himself has had to navigate through. Pasquale, I want to welcome you to the podcast, brother. Again, it just takes immense courage to speak about what you are speaking about. I applaud you. I know you're doing it to help others. And there could be, I know of no more nobler pursuit than speaking about something like this in an effort to help others. So welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's start from your young age. You immigrated to the U.S. at the age of 3. Kind of tell everyone about where you grew up, your childhood, siblings, just kind of give them a basic understanding of your childhood and who you are.
So we came, like I said, we came here in 1970. Actually, I said 74. It's 72. I think it was 72, actually.
Okay.
72, 74. Was me, my brother. I have an older brother I'm 57. He's 8 years older than me. At the time, he was 11. I was 8. And my mom was pregnant with my sister.
Okay.
So my sister is the true American citizen. She was born here.
The only one without dual citizenship, huh?
Oh yeah. So she's the American citizen, and she speaks Italian and writes better than me. And my brother, being that he was older, he can write and speak. So
nice.
We came here. My father rented a house in Dix Hills, not too far from where we grew up, on Carl Street Path. And then bought the house.
Funny, that was my sector. I was a cop in the 2nd Precinct in Suffolk County. My sector covered Pasquale's house. That's pretty funny. Just small world.
So that was back then. So I want to say, you know what? We might have been here earlier because I'm thinking 74 now. I'm saying why 74? 74 is when they bought the house in Deer Park where we grew up.
Okay.
In 74. And for $34,000, imagine, just bringing a number back what it was, about $34,000. And the paperwork was only like this, and today's closings are like this.
Oh, yeah. Do more for a library card these days.
Right.
Than probably different mortgage back then.
Yeah, so grew up in Deer Park, went to school in Deer Park, Memorial School, Robert Frost Junior High, and then Deer Park High, and graduated in '86. Then I went to work with. I went to work with my dad. My dad was always a heavy equipment driver, even when he was in Italy, and then when he came here, he was driving cement trucks and all of that. And actually bought his own truck and then he bought another truck, and then we actually worked together for about 9 years, and then the economy took a shit back in the 80s when it really took a dive.
Yep.
And we didn't have the trucks anymore, and then he went to work for somebody, and then I worked for a company in Bayshore driving trailers, and then I was driving all over the place. I was driving up to Pennsylvania, Jersey, everywhere, upstate New York, and then I became a cop. Then I worked in the construction field at a concrete plant. I've only really had 3 jobs my whole life.
That's amazing.
I stayed, I didn't deviate. I stayed, and then things, happened, and moved on, and then became a cop, and then that was it.
So I know the story, but can you tell everyone what led you to law enforcement?
So 9/11 happens, and obviously everybody knows the event. So I had.
Where were you on that day as this is all happening that morning?
In that morning, it was that beautiful Tuesday morning, clear blue skies. I was out east working, and we had this little TV, that black and white, that wasn't antenna you had to play with, and we were just getting feed, and we were getting glimpses of when we first heard a plane hit the Trade Center. So I'm like, holy shit. So first they were saying a small plane, and then as we're watching it, then reports came in. It wasn't a small plane. It was actually a commercial airliner,
right?
Initial plane. And then we watched as the second plane hit. So I was like, holy shit. Then I was like, wow, this is not obviously new. But I had.
This is an attack.
I knew this is an attack, right? So right away I called Joe, because I knew he was in the ESU.
And Joe is?
Joe Vigiano. He was an ESU cop. He was ESU at the time. He started in the 7.5, then went to ESU. He was one of the most decorated cops in the history of the NYPD. He was involved in 3 shootings, was shot at, and
his brother was also FDNY.
His brother was at FDNY. Yeah, he was in Engine Company 280, which was in Brooklyn.
Okay.
I forget what ladder company they're at, but 280 was St. John's, I believe. And for the guys that are FDNY, I'm sorry if I messed it up. He was there, but I didn't know John was working that day. I had no idea. I knew Joe was there. I knew Joe was working. I knew Joe would be down there.
Right.
But then again, as I just said, that didn't matter because there's so many guys that weren't working that went down there anyway.
Yeah.
But I called his phone and called it a couple of times, and I was like, "Hey, Joe," I was like, "I'm watching this, and I know you're heading down there. You're probably there." I'm like, just be careful. I was like, "Be careful," and no, went right to voicemail, no response, blah blah blah, and called it a few more times. I kept trying to call it, as things are happening during the day, and finally somebody picks up the phone. I'm like, "Joe." He's like, "Nah, it's not Joe." It was an EMT that saw the phone and picked it up. And I'm like, it's like, listen, I was like, his wife, Kathy, it's like, this is her number, get a hold of her and, give her the phone. So when I hung up, I knew that it wasn't.
Was it good?
It wasn't good because at one point, one tower came down. I believe it was the South Tower at the Sam.
Yeah, I don't recall which came down first. Myself.
One of them came down, so I knew that it wasn't. Knowing being in construction and the height of those buildings and people that were in there, and I just I knew, and then of course it was then found out 2 days later that the next day that John was there also, that he was missing. So it was a crazy, it was a crazy, to say the least. It was a crazy, just a crazy time.
Yeah.
Fast forward that, now I wanted to be a cop more so than it was 2003. 2003 I got on. 9/11 happens. There's a 9/11 class in there. And I was the second class after 9/11. Our class was the second one.
And when did you guys go in?
We went in and I got hired July 1st, 2003.
03, okay.
03.
Okay.
So
was it an immediate thing once you found out that, the
Yeah,
GMs had passed, like, I have to do this?
Yeah, I had to, because I wanted to be a cop, because I always had it in me to help, even through all my struggles, even through all what went on with me with the abuse. I always wanted to help, because I always looked to help people and stick up for people and defend people.
Yeah.
So, and a part of me honestly was to help those that were sexually abused.
Mm-hmm.
To get into that unit, but that really didn't come into light, because when I thought about things and me being in a unit like that, I don't know what would have transcended to be around pedophiles, to be around people, men or women, that would prey on a kid.
Yeah, I remember talking to a good friend of mine. Sorry to interrupt. I was talking to a good buddy of mine. Name is Frank Lupo. We were cops together in Atlanta, and he got promoted to detective. It's called investigator in Atlanta. But we had met up for lunch one day, and he started, I don't know, I would say within the past 6 months in youth squad was where he was assigned, and youth squad handles all sexual crimes against children. And he started telling me, I think it was his second story, about a guy who was raping a 1.5-month-old baby. And I'm like, Loop, stop. And I could stomach anything. And story-wise, seeing things, I'm like, you need to get out of there. I'm like, this is going to fucking take your soul. I'm like, how can you investigate this? And, for those who don't know, when they get child pornography cases, they have to view these tapes that these freaks are watching, because it's going to be used as evidence. So they have to know and be able to speak about, the evidence that they're going to be producing. So you're literally watching children get sexually abused, raped, molested, everything. God bless these men and women that do it. I personally could not have ever done it. And, my thing to him, my advice was get out, because it's going to take your soul. And I don't know how long he lasted there. It wasn't that long, thank God. But, brother, I can't even imagine doing it. That is, it takes a special person to do that.
I couldn't, at that time, thinking about it now as we're talking about, police stuff, and I don't, like I said, I don't know what, I think something bad would have happened, honestly.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me how I would be now, being in the state that I'm in now mentally, I would probably handle it a lot better without the thought of actually trying to kill somebody.
Right.
Was, at one point, I've talked about it, on Clark's podcast that I went on that one, and he killed his abuser. At one point,
So Clark is Clark Fredericks, right?
Clark Fredericks, yeah.
Yep.
And if you follow him, it's amazing.
It's amazing. Can you just tell the story briefly, just to get people context of what we're talking about?
So Clark is, if you go, he's on Instagram, he's on Facebook. Pop in Clark Fredericks, Free Like Me. That's his YouTube podcast, and he gets people on. And he started this a year ago. I came across him like I just happened to be scrolling on Instagram, and at that time, like I said, I found myself more and more talking about what transcended with me. More to people, and I was opening up a little more to different. There was a group that I was involved in called Soul Brothers, and I remember mentioning that to a group of men. Like I said,
Okay.
this is what happened to me, because that's when I knew I needed it to come out, because my second marriage was my downfall, because I know I needed to make a fucking change. I had to change, because whatever was going on was not working. I was self-sabotaging myself. There was just I was at the lowest point in my life, and I found, of course, that when I was involved with that group, Soul Brothers, yes, there's like 10, 15 men, 20 men at the meeting. I said, this is what happened,
So it's a sexual abuse survivors group, essentially?
No, it's just a group
Oh.
of men that just talk about, could be anything, doesn't matter,
Just like a fraternal group.
just
Gotcha.
a fraternal group, right? And but that's where I found myself like talking more and more, and then Clark comes across my screen, and I'm listening to this guy's story, and I'm like, holy fuck! I'm like, he's saying shit that I know, saying things that I felt, and how I felt, and why I felt it. Took me a while to reach out
Yep.
to him, because I wasn't there. I didn't know, I wasn't even sure if he was going to respond back to me.
Right. And his story was that of someone who was abused as a child.
His story was he was sexually abused, raped, and molested,
Yep.
and he ended up killed his abuser, and he went to prison. 5-6 years in prison.
Was that a plea, or did he go to trial and was found
No,
guilty?
he actually. You know what? His story's on there, so I don't want to misspeak.
Right.
So it might have been a plea. It might have been a plea, but don't hold me to it.
Yep.
Whoever is interested, if they go on there and Google it, and it'll come up. I know I'm jumping around, but he actually had his prosecutor. He actually had the cop that arrested him on his podcast, which was cool. Which is really, really awesome that they came on.
Yeah, I like to see that episode or episodes myself.
Yeah, he killed him, and that was like something I wanted to do, but I never did it.
Why is that? What stopped
And
you?
One, I was scared. I didn't
Okay.
have it in me to do it.
Right.
I had the rage, and that's what scared me.
Yep.
Was that? But also, I'm going to go to fucking jail.
Right.
So I didn't do it. But I understood what he was saying, Clark, why he did it, and the things he was saying. And fast forward, I reach out to him, and he actually reached back out. We actually had an interview, and we talked on the phone for about a half hour. And I went on his podcast, on his show, in Jersey, taped it in January. It was, January, towards the end of January. Yeah, it's like towards the end of January.
Okay.
I told my story.
So 4 months ago.
Yeah, I told
Very,
my
very
story,
recent.
and I put my page public, my social media, Instagram. I put it out there. It's the best thing I did. The best thing I did. And I did it because I wanted to, because like we said earlier, I just want to show men that you can talk about how you're feeling and what happened to you without any shame. You could tell the world, he molested me. Yeah, he anally, molested me. Put his thing in my mouth, put his penis in my mouth. Tell me if he said, if you said anything that he was going to hurt me or was going to hurt my family. It's okay to say it. There's no shame in it.
Absolutely.
Yes, of course, I
No,
felt the
he did nothing
shame,
wrong.
the
It's
embarrassment.
100% on him.
What are people gonna what are people gonna think? What are they gonna what are they gonna think of me? They're gonna all these things. Am I gay? You start to question, was I gay? And I'm like, no, I'm not gay. But all these things go through your head of why not to bring it out and go the status quo. Like I call them the dark truths. Everybody has dark truths about themselves. Now is a
Yep.
dark truth within me, you know, but it couldn't be status quo for me anymore because status quo and turning, you know, like I said earlier about, going to work and you had to shut that part of you down. You had to shut it down because you're going to work and you're going into a place that's violent and everybody's life, my partner's life is in my hands. My life is in his hands, and vice versa. And it's a
Yep.
midnight tour, and we all looked out for each other, and you had that responsibility. Um, so when things would come up, I would take it and flick a light switch. That's what I would call it. You can turn a light on and off. I would shut those emotions, that part
Right.
of me off. And how I dealt with it was recklessly. I drank. I chased. There was always a thrill. There was porn. There was always a thrill of having anal sex. As to why was it? Why was it so? I needed to know why did this guy have to do this to me? What was the feeling? What did you feel? That's the fucking shit that would go through my head as to to do all these things, the self-destructing, the self-sabotage, and that's how I dealt with it. So when I turned it off, I turned it
Right.
completely off, my emotions, and just did things destructive. That was the yeah. So I was saying is, I want to show men, women, teenagers, whoever sees it, whoever listens to it, whatever it is, whatever that you're going through, because of whatever trauma it is, a bad marriage, relationship, because of something that you haven't dealt with, it's okay to talk about it. You need to talk about it because if you don't, it affects every aspect of your life. And I understand that. And I've said before, and when I did when I spoke with Clark, for me, my innocence was taken away.
Yeah.
But when I see children, I see kids today, I see innocence.
Yep.
I don't know what that feels like I don't, because I never had it. I had it at one point, but then it was taken away. You know, and that's something that's very,
Sacred.
you know, it's crazy. It's literally just taken away from you.
Yeah.
And it's okay to talk about it. Don't keep it in. Don't be me. Don't, because I led a life of continuing doing the same things over and over again. It just became different faces, and everything I did, the chasing the women, the drinking, the over drinking, the ego of being this person that I wasn't, you know, it just leads to
Destruction.
it leads to destruction. They're just
Yeah.
band-aids.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It
Everything that
invades every facet of your life, and you're not ever going to be truly happy until you process the trauma that you went through. And listen, it's tough to do, especially as a child. But I think one important thing is for you men that have gone through it, it's never going to resolve itself. You have to speak to someone. Whatever you decide a modality is of help that you're going to seek, you must get help in some way, shape, or form, or else it's never. You're going to either, like you said, you're going to dull it with substances. You're going to have other people coming in. You're going to do everything you can. Number one, to take the focus off your mind thinking about it. Number two, you're going to try and put all these other artificial um, things in your life to try and make you happy. When in fact, nothing is going to make you happy other than being able to process this. You can't run away from yourself. So you can do all these things, you go all these different places, but when you look in a mirror, it's still Pasquale looking back. and until Pasquale is that healed man that he needs to be, nothing is going to be your authentic self, so to speak.
No, no, because you just said it. You can't. I constantly ran away from dealing with the things I dealt with. If you put me to a corner, I would snap back. I would get defensive.
Yep.
No, that was my way. That was that's how I dealt with it.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, indifferent, whatever the case is. But that's how it was. That's how that's how I dealt with it. Looking back at it, no, it wasn't the way to deal with it. It wasn't to run away. It wasn't to run away from the person that loves you, that wants to see you healthy, happy. But you have to, and I say this now, if there's people out there, couples, their marriage, or whether it's the man or woman, and you're feeling these things, it's okay to say, hey, to separate. Because for me, and I say this in my experience, I needed to be on my own.
Hmm.
I needed to be in that space. I needed to sit and I had to go through things for me. And I know people might have took it as a slight or I didn't want them involved, but I needed to go down a road by myself.
Yeah.
I needed to heal. I needed to be away. And I know people meant well and they wanted to help and they wanted to do all those things, but I needed, my journey started 5 years ago. And it will always continue the healing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not linear. It ebbs and flows.
It
Yeah.
goes up, but initially I needed to be on my own. Now, was I on my own? No, because I still was going down a destructive path. But when you sit and you finally make that decision to say, and you look at that person in the mirror that's looking back at you, and that's what I did. I was down in my house, downstairs, in the bathroom, and crying my eyes out for 3 months
Hmm.
because I knew that I needed to stop. I knew I had to take accountability. I knew I had to take responsibility. I couldn't blame anybody else. I took, I owned it.
Yep.
You have to own it. You have to forgive. I've forgiven the guy that abused me. I had to forgive. Had to, not for him, but for me.
Right.
Because when things would pop up or things would triggered me, I couldn't go back. I couldn't go backwards. I had to go forwards. I had to. That part of me had to forgive him.
Yeah.
So the point is, you have to sit. I want people to understand that you can sit in that space. You need the help, and I know people mean well, but sometimes you need to be away from people and just be in that place on your own.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You have to,
Solitude.
because if you
And
don't,
sometimes it's probably the hardest thing to do is be with
it's
yourself because
it's
now
the
you're thinking
most
about it.
people most people can't do that because
Yeah.
they look
Exactly.
at the external parts of this is what's going to make me feel better. And what do we say? Either going to be alcohol, drugs, women, could be overreaching, overdoing, like I did. I would
Yeah.
overdo, because I wanted to be. I wanted to say, look, I love you. Look what I did. Look, part of me, even like I've said before, for as bad as I was, I had a heart. I had a good heart,
Right.
but I did it a little too much
Yeah.
because there was an attachment. You can't be attached. Can't have attachments. But listen, and people like me that were abused, these things they'll they'll come up, the attachment parts, because you want to feel whole, you want to
Yeah.
feel loved, you want to feel like there's
Of
nothing
course, we all do.
there's nothing wrong with you, and there isn't anything wrong with you. You just have
No. Other than the pain that you're going through. Yeah. Nothing you did wrong.
it's nothing you did wrong.
Absolutely.
So
Exactly.
I know we had talked before, and you'd asked me, how come you don't name them? I'm like, I don't have to, Because if you know me, you know where I grew up in Deer Park, across the street. People are already gonna know. People already know. They've already messaged me. They're like, "No way," and I'm like, "Yeah." So the shame goes back to them. It doesn't. There's no shame in my. I'm way past that shit.
No, not at all.
I'm
Nor
not.
should you live with shame.
I'm not shamed. But you know, going back again, you have to really sit in it. And to those who are together, you know, I think sometimes it says, you say now, like I could say now, especially the person I'm with now that I'm with. I go, it's okay if you come to me and say, hey, I'm not going to come over tonight because I'm feeling this, this, and this, and I need this
You're in
to,
space.
I need
Yeah.
to just sit in my thing. Okay, no problem. Great. Now, if you're together, you're married. I couldn't say those things because I didn't know how. Because a lot of the things I felt I was ashamed that I knew I was doing shit that I shouldn't be doing.
Yep.
Compound it on top of the other things. I didn't know how to say because all I needed to say was, "Hey, I need this. I just I need a half a day. I just need to sit. I love you, but I need to be on my own. I need to
Yeah. Yeah.
just be
Just
by
need
myself.
solitude and yeah.
It's
All right.
okay.
So
Say
let
it.
me
Do
ask
it."
you this. Let's backtrack a little bit. I'd like to go back to when you were a child and talk about how it started. Two things. One, to, hear about your story, but two, as you're talking about it, for parents listening, these are things to watch out for as well, because a lot of these methods that these predators use are so similar. They are literally predators. They try to groom children, you know, um, and it just could be things that you mentioned right now are going to mention that pop up, and some parent had been paying attention or someone, and you know what, man, so and so did that to my son or daughter, and I thought it was odd at the time, didn't think that much of it, but now it makes a lot more sense. So, can we kind of go back to
I
you
mean,
as a child and how this
yeah,
started?
yeah. I think today, for me, how it started with me today is the two different worlds, and the only thing that the difference is
Yep.
this, and we're on a computer, and we can basically fucking reach the whole world
Okay.
through this through this device. So for me, it was just basically, it was baseball cards, it was candy, could ride the mini bike.
And how old are you at the time, and how old is he?
He's I, eh, there's pictures I'm going to post tomorrow. And I think it was like my 10th birthday or ninth. It was like eight. I was young. It was 8 or 9. I was either 8 or 9 years old.
Okay.
And
And had you known him? How old is he,
yeah,
approximately?
he's at the time he had to be. He was the older brother. There was three brothers there, so he's the oldest. So he had to be. I know I said 20, but I no, because he was. It could have been. It was either 18 or 20, somewhere in
Okay.
between. Somewhere in between that in that timeline. He was
And
the
had you
oldest.
known him
He had
for
a
a few
man.
years prior to the restarting?
Well, like I said, it was you had that suburban lifestyle across the street, neighbors,
Hmm.
you know, all of that, and you had this going on, and it started with getting me to the mini bikes, riding the mini bikes, cards, candy, and then once it was done the first time, that was it.
And how long from when you
So it was
kind of started interacting
probably
him?
when oh, was always, even though it happened in a year's time, like 4 or 5 times within a year. It was only until that last time was when his mother and brother came downstairs because it happened in the basement. He brought me down to his basement. That's
Yeah,
why
it's an amazing story.
it
What you're
was
about to.
it was you know, I could still have that smell of the basement.
Yeah.
Like I know what that smells like. It's never, but that's how it's, that's a musty, dusty basement.
Yep.
Ouch. You know, that's where it started, right there.
And then can you tell that story? Because I heard you speaking about it on Clark's podcast about that specific incident. Like that one blew me away.
So that was, yeah, down in the, basement door, come around the side of the house, and boom, go down a set of stairs, open the door. There was like stuff in the middle of the basement, and a couch, and it happened on that couch, dirty, dusty couch. It just it was it was fucked up.
And he essentially raped you. And as he's doing so,
Essentially, because that's really what it comes down to when
yeah.
you're a kid.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you violated me, so you raped me. It wasn't a forcible, rape, and it wasn't anything like that. It's like, you're gonna do it's okay, don't worry. Always reassuring words, and that's something, how now we're talking about it, and there's always things that come back. Always reassurance. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Things in that nature. But then when his, like I said, his mother and brother came down. I remember the brother came down first and was laughing, ran upstairs.
Laughing.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy shit.
It was a giggle. I remember the giggle. Because we're talking about it, and it's taking me back. And then the mother came down. She's like, "Get out," and then that was it.
That
But
was
then
it.
everything after that was pretending like nothing ever happened.
You would see him periodically at that point, mom and the brother. Obviously, they lived across the street
Mike, I used to go there for Fourth of July parties.
and no
Like,
acknowledgement whatsoever from the mom. That's unbelievable.
but that's how it. When I said it when I talked with Clark, it was just Clark understood because it was like status quo. It's like here
Hmm.
you are, like, hey neighbors, hi, like and you have this fucking dark truth, as I call it, that what went on, and it's not talked about. Clark went through and he understood that because he used to see his guy all the time. Hey, and the guy used to wave to him. Hey, Clark. Hey, how are you?
Unbelievable.
That's the crazy part.
Yeah. I mean,
You
it's
know,
got to be the craziest dynamic to you. You seeing this guy, on the regular after what he did. And was that the last incidence of abuse?
yeah, that was once the mother. It was crazy. And the crazy part is my ex-wife worked. The one brother worked with my ex-wife
Really?
in the
That's the
same
one that saw it.
in the same same company. And it was it was just a fucked up time. It was
Oh,
just
I can't even imagine.
you
Is now
know
was he talking to you after that, or making threats,
no
trying
no
to
no
become,
no
stay
no
friendly?
no it was status quo, like nothing happened.
Never talked about it. Like, yeah, like it was nothing.
I didn't want to think about it.
Hmm.
you
I
know
can imagine.
I didn't want to think about it or deal with it. Who was I going to tell?
Yeah.
Was I going to tell my parents? No. A friend, a teacher? No. It wasn't talked about
Yeah. I can imagine.
back then. It just
So,
wasn't.
who's the first person you've ever spoken to it about afterwards?
I had told a cousin of mine who passed away years ago. I told her, and we spoke about it, but not in depth. The whole anal thing and the whole penis in my mouth, and that. I didn't get involved like I am now, saying it now, because to
Right.
me it's embarrassing. It was then embarrassing anymore. I just said I was sexually molested and touched, and that was that. And I really didn't. Of course, after everything, when my first marriage fell apart, I told my siblings, then they knew. Then my parents knew. But then after that, I never really again spoke about it. Yeah, I went to therapy. I went through probably, I don't know how many therapists I went through, because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good. You know,
Yeah.
People do this. They go to therapy 2, 3, 4 months. Okay, I'm good. How is it good? It wasn't good because, one, I wasn't being honest with myself,
In
and
what respect when you say that?
just of like what was like what was going on, like what actually happened. You know,
Oh, so even to yourself, you're not acknowledging that you were
no,
raped.
not acknowledge it because I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want to consider myself a victim
Ah,
of that.
okay.
Now,
So how do
like
you reconcile
now,
that in your
now,
mind?
now, do I look at myself as a victim? Yeah, I was a victim. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I
So how
was.
are you reconciling that in your mind at the time? Like, what are you telling yourself?
Nah, it didn't. Nah, it didn't happen. Or, then I'm questioning: did I want it to happen? Did it? Am I? Like I said before earlier, am I gay?
Yeah,
And I'm like, no, it's crazy. Then I thought, and Clark brought this up, which was really interesting. Then I said to myself, I was like, maybe it happened to him, right? And I
yep.
talked about this with Clark, and I was like, maybe it happened to him. And I'm telling Clark this, and he's like, no. So they did a study, and I'd have to go back to the podcast, mine. So when we talked about it, and it made fucking so much sense. He goes, they did a study out of pedophiles, right?
Yeah,
That were arrested, incarcerated,
yep.
and they did this study. They found out that 70 something percent. Don't hold me that number. It was a high number, but I'm believing it was 70. They were full of shit.
Really? They were
Didn't
not
have.
abused.
They got caught. So they're saying
Right.
they got abused. The other percentage, which was low, they were actually abused. And Clark goes, if that was the case, he goes, everyone that was raped or abused or sexually abused and molested, they'd all be pedophiles.
Yeah, logically.
If that was, he goes, you and I would be a fucking, and he's like, it's the fucking truth because it's disgusting.
Yeah.
I
Hell
would
yeah.
never in a million years think to do that to a child because I know exactly what it did to me and what it felt. Why would I want to do that to some? But they did that study, and at least 70% of them are full of shit. They got caught.
So what are they attributed to? They're just literally
They
all
just try
these
to get
men.
a lenient sentence, or try
Right.
to,
But
it's
I'm
all.
saying, as a causation, are they just attracted to young kids? Like this many
Yeah, yeah.
men
There's
are attracted to young kids? Wow.
yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah, because I always thought that it was them being molested themselves, which, caused a proclivity to do that. Who the hell else would,
No, but there's
be
a
doing that?
fascination for younger
Wow.
kids.
Yeah, I had no idea. It's news to me, to be honest with you. That's a revelation because I always thought,
You know,
I would say almost 100% of them probably were abused themselves. Not that it's an excusable,
but but
action, but
yes, there is that small percentage that, yeah, they were abused, and you know they do that, but the majority of it is an affliction with children.
wow.
You know, so
So you're carrying this now throughout your lifetime. No one's got a clue what's going on. What kind
I
of spurs
feel,
you to finally reach out and get help? What happens? Anything
well,
specific?
my second marriage falls apart.
Okay.
Totally goes to shit, and that to me was the catalyst for me to finally say, Pasquale, it's not it's not it's not working.
Right.
You have to change. You have to get a hold of your internal pain, trauma. You got to get a hold of it because you're going to keep repeating this over and over again.
Yeah.
Till you
Did your
get,
ex-wives know the breadth of what had happened to you? Do you ever
well,
speak to them in depth?
my ex-wife knew, and you know, I thought she was my first wife. When I told her, I thought she was keeping my my daughter away from me. And that was debunked when I did my podcast with Clark, because I told my kids, I wanted to tell my kids before I went on the podcast that this was going on. And after the pod, I told my children, and my daughter was like, "Yeah, I knew. Well, mommy told me." Because I did tell
Okay.
my wife, and I didn't know if she did tell her or not. But my son didn't know. And after the podcast, you know, she had listened to it, and then I said to her, and I said apart, I was like, I had thought my first wife was actually holding my daughter back because of what happened. She didn't want to be around me. And my daughter was like, no, that was never the case. So that made me feel better, because through this whole time, I always thought that my ex, kept my daughter Gabriella away from me a little bit, because that I was abused, or she thought that I was going to, do something to her.
Right.
Right. And, but that was never the case. That was just
Okay.
something that I thought. And my daughter was like, no, Dad, Mom never said anything. And she's like, no, I was never like that, which was good. So that was something I carried for a long time, thinking that, when she was little, that I wasn't going to see, she didn't want to let me see my daughter.
Right.
But
That's
yeah, that was,
immense.
the second marriage was the kicker.
Okay. So,
Was
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
was for me to really start taking action for myself.
Did you think
Taking,
you were doing certain behaviors and you were excusing yourself because, hey, man, I was abused.
how many times I used that?
Yeah.
I'll tell you right here, right now. And if anybody else says that they never did that, they're full of shit. Because and I mean that in not a bad way. It just, you have to, if you want to heal and you want to get better, you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to say that part.
Yeah.
You have to say,
100%.
yes, I was, I used that as a crutch. Well, fuck it. It's like, this shit happened to me. I'm gonna, people will tell you. I tell people, I don't give a fuck. I'll do whatever I want. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going out. I'll come home at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't care. 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, I use that. Yes, at times I use that as a crutch, and you can't.
No, you can, but there's going to be a price to pay.
There's always a
For
price to pay.
yeah, for every action, there's going to be a reaction.
Every action is going to be a reaction. And I paid the price. I paid it many times, the price. But I had to make a change for me in my life, because it just wasn't working. It just
Right.
was not working. I was
And
I
then
was
how does that look?
I was
So
I was a
you
ro-
decide
I
to
was
change?
I was a rolling stone. That's what I called it. I was a rolling stone, just rolling, just
Makes sense.
getting on that wheel, jumping off, and new face, and you know, not learning how to deal with what goes on. When you
Yeah.
feel something, it triggers you. When something arises, it triggers you. You know, and if for me, when that trigger comes, you react, and usually the reaction was something not good.
Right.
So now, if those triggers do come about, because they sometimes still do, I stop. You become aware. You become mindful. You stop, take a breath, sit in it, feel it, let it go. Can't react to everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
How many
Or if you do, just give
we
some time.
we could react to 1,000 different things every day, just everyday life, and we see it. We see the ramifications of people reacting and what happens. But you can't react. You got to just let it, just feel it, let it go. And if
Yeah.
it's too much, reach out to somebody that you can trust, that you can talk to, that understands. That's the other thing. You asked me before, if I told anybody. I told the wrong people what happened to me, because then it's used against you.
Yeah, yeah. Have to be careful of that.
You have to be
100%.
extremely careful of what your trauma is or whatever it is that you want to talk to people, because people always don't have your
Best interest at heart.
best interest at heart.
No, far from.
So,
And it's your most devastatingly intimate secret to tell. So, yeah,
yeah,
those of you share it with want to make sure that you have your best interest in heart
yeah,
at the least.
100%. I tell people now, I'll tell them here now, my number, my page is open. You can call me, but you can reach out, and I've had people reach out and ask me stuff. I had somebody reach out today and they're telling me about doing this, and this. And I was that person when you're going through something, and you want people on your side, I guess. You need that validation that you are right or wrong. There is no right or wrong when you're in a conversation about trying to be better or trying to better yourself or trying to evolve and growth and all of that. You sit and have conversations. But what I'm saying is, I can't do it for you. You can't do it for. You have to start yourself. And if you're not going to take the advice that
Yeah.
people give you, then stop asking me. And I know that's cold,
No, I
but
don't think it's cold.
I needed that person in my life at one point to be like, hey, Pasquale, the fuck? What are you
Yeah.
doing? What's, I didn't have that, because you have to sometimes tell that hard truth that people aren't going to like.
Yeah.
And there's no judgments. And I learned this, a therapist that I see, and she's awesome. And she puts it this way: there is no judgments. There is no, I'm not judging anybody here, because everybody's got an issue. Somebody's got something going on. But I'll always say this: you can talk about it and you can judge the situation, not the person.
Yeah.
You can judge the situation, because we could judge the situations I put myself in, and what do you learn from it? Because I look to see is, what are you going to learn from the situation that you put yourself in? That's the mindset, that's the perspective, that's the switch. It's change the perspective. All right, you did something that wasn't great. All right, what am I going to do to make it better? How am I going to get
Yep.
better? Where can I be better? What's my role in it? What's my part in it? Because two people, there's always a part, there's always a role everybody plays in.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm maybe touching into another subject, but the point I was saying before is, people reach out. I will help you, try to help you and talk to you, but you have to take the steps. You can't tell me to call you, or, and then you don't pick up the phone, and then don't hear from you. Then it's going to be like, when you want to talk and you're ready, you can call me. I'm not going to chase.
Yeah, exactly.
You
You
can't
can't.
do that. You
You can't
can't.
force anyone
You
to do
give
anything they're
them,
not ready for or don't want to do.
and that's the key. When they're not ready, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's just their journey, their path. Maybe something's going to stick or something going to click and be like, oh, wow, I had that conversation with him. Shit. Might be that aha moment and be like, all right, now I got to make that change.
Yeah.
I have to, do that for me. Because you have to do this for you, nobody else.
Oh, 100%.
That's to be for you. Because if you're not going to love who you are, and I did not love who I was, you're never going to love anybody else.
Yep.
So you need to do
Self love is
self love,
most important.
self care, self love. You have to love who you are. You have to love all the ugly parts of yourself. You have to, especially those, 'cause that's where you're going to learn. And listen, I still fail at times, and it's okay. We're human.
Oh, I've never met a perfect
Hey,
person in my life, brother. I don't know about you. We're all
there's no
imperfect beings.
there is no such thing as perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm imperfect. We all are. You know. Yeah, I fail. Sometimes I may say things. Sometimes I try not to be that person. I'm a much calmer person. I'm a much, spiritual. Even though some may agree that I'm not spiritual, but that's okay, because again, this is. I will be completely honest, because when I tell you I fail, I fail. If somebody doesn't wave, I'm be like, you motherfucker, why didn't you wave? I let you in. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
this is
yeah.
there just
Yeah, I'm
got to be
still
like,
working on road rage myself, brother.
it's still like, all right, it's just,
Yeah,
it's different, you know. And I know going back, we're going to go back to what you're saying with parents with their kids today. How was my mother supposed to know I was getting baseball cards? I didn't fucking tell her. She didn't tell me anything about people touching you or anything like that.
yeah.
It just
Listen,
what
did she even know? You know what I mean? Is
she,
it's
she
something she
obviously
wasn't exposed to?
you didn't know.
She not gonna know.
She's not going to know. So
Yeah,
how can parents today? You know, today it's so. I wish I had a great answer. It's the best answer I can tell them today is my kids growing up. That's what triggered a lot of it for me as they grew up. You know, my son was into. You know, he was into the trucks. I would take him with him. He was into the equipment because our family was around all of that stuff. And there was a neighbor. There was no sleepovers. I didn't. My kids didn't sleep
didn't
unless it
allow him.
was a grandparents or it was a like a good friend
Yeah,
that was like. I mean, we knew them, you know.
yeah. Just hyper vigilant.
So he would go next door to, you know, this guy Doug. He'd keep trucks there. He'd had like backhoes, machines, and stuff.
Okay.
My son was fascinated with that, and this by no means did Doug do anything to my kid. He was a great, still around. He's a great guy. Has his own, you know, his own family. But for me, in my head, I'm like, I get home, I'm like, where's Vito? And she was like, and this before my wife knew anything. And she's like, oh, he's with Doug. I'm like, get him. I would go over there. I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, get home.
Yeah,
Get home. That's because that in my head was when I would see him, that little boy, I saw that
yeah.
little
Bringing
boy
back
in me.
memories. Yep.
You know, where I said, well, you know, my mother says, well, I used to see you. Where were you? I knew you, you know, all of those things came rushing back. I'm like, get home.
Yeah.
Get
Of
home.
course,
Get
you
home.
develop hypervigilance.
You
Yeah,
know, get home. But
perfectly natural.
now, today, yeah, parents today, sleepovers, you have family members that are pedophiles.
Hmm.
You know, the girl I'm with now, her grandfather, that's how we bonded. That's how we connected. Her grandfather, at 4 or 5 years old, was a pedophile
Really?
and abused her.
Damn.
So, you know, today you have to tell these kids at an early age, you can't, if it's not mommy or daddy telling you to come here or where, you can't go anywhere. You can't be touched. You have to tell them at a young age, and you have to show them like this is your privates. This
Yeah.
can't be touched. They're not gonna. You're not gonna take candy from them. I'm not there. Mommy's not there. Daddy's
Yep.
not there. No, you have to constantly tell them the dangers of what it is. It's a fucked up thing because it's a fucked up world. Because not only that, these kids are getting snatched off the streets and they're getting put into places that are unspeakable of
Oh
what's
yeah,
being
human
done,
trafficking. Yeah, people have no
trafficking,
idea.
and they have no idea. And you just have to constantly be vigilant and talk to them and see who the fuck they're talking to on the
Yeah.
computer.
Well, that's the key. Number one, you have to have great communication with your kids. Number two, don't give them these tablets and phones and let them have unfettered access. You need to pay attention to what the hell's going on and what they're doing and who they're speaking to online. Um, I remember I had seen this was crazy. It was a story about a girl who got human trafficked, and if that's the right term, but she went to a Dallas Mavericks game with her dad, and you could see video footage of her going to the concession stand to get some food. So as she's walking there, she gets intercepted by like an early 20s kid, offers to go to his car with her and smoke weed. Next thing she knows, she's leaving the arena. She's turned out in like 2 days and she's hooked on drugs and prostituting literally within 48 hours. This was her story. I guess about a year later, they had found her and taken her out of those circumstances. But it happens like that. So, parents, your kids are looking for love. If they're not getting in a healthy place from you and your family, they're
They're gonna,
going to get it somewhere else. And it's going to be an unhealthy place, which is where things like this happen. So you need to have open and honest communication with your children about everything that's going on.
yeah.
Unfortunately, you have to talk to them about this stuff. There's no way around it.
You know, it's again, it's you brought up communication, and you have to communicate with your kids and show them love and tell them, you're doing a fabulous job. But also, again, there's sometimes you have to tell kids like, no,
Yeah.
can't, it can't always be give, 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 and they're not learning they're not getting anything out of it. They're not learning anything. You know, you have to let them go a little bit, and you have to pull them back.
Yeah.
That's the only way they're going to learn. I didn't have that because it was a free for all. And I know part of it is when my parents came here, they came from a place, they were, like I said, they lived off the land. They
Yep.
worked. The opportunities here are much greater. And I think they gave us that long leash and they didn't know how to pull back because they wanted those things for you. They wanted those great things
Right.
to have, but man, the most important thing is really the emotional connection you need to have with your kids.
Yeah.
You need to tell them the rights, the wrongs. When they do good, you celebrate them. When they do not so good, with going back to my kids, I always said, listen, to this day, I tell them all the time, I don't care what it is. I don't care how bad you think it may be. You need to tell me.
Yeah.
I'll never judge you. I'll never be that parent, be like, oh my fucking God, Jesus Christ, you fucking did what? You did. I want to know everything that you may feel you can't talk to
Yeah.
me as a parent because I'll never judge you.
Yep.
I just won't. I won't do it. It's not in it's not in my thing. And I learned that with, because we all could be judgmental as people. I have.
Oh, yeah. Always.
But I won't judge the person. I won't. I won't. Maybe I may say, well, you fucking, what the fuck? When are you gonna? Yeah, I may go things along those lines, but at the end of the day, I know it's a human being.
Hmm.
But I will not judge them because it's not my job to.
Yeah.
That's reserved for the guy upstairs. I can look at it and look at the situation and judge it and say, well, maybe you shouldn't put yourself in that situation because this, and this is going to happen. It's trying to be that person when you see something, is you try to point it out to somebody. And let me tell you, sometimes people look at me like, go fuck yourself. I'm like, okay,
Oh, yeah.
all right,
Undoubtedly.
all right, no, no problem.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Are you trying
I
to
just
help
believe,
if it's not needed
again,
or not wanted?
no, you just let it be.
Yeah.
And,
So be it.
you know, again, it's talking about it and bringing it to light, whatever the issue is, especially those that were sexually abused. Man, don't feel shamed. Don't be embarrassed. Don't feel that you're not worthy or you're not whole.
Yep.
Far
Don't
from
feel
it.
you're alone because you are certainly not alone.
You're far from it. And
Unfortunately, this group is huge.
you're not alone because there's people in every walks of life that carry it.
Yeah.
And I know that there's people out there that's destroyed marriages. It destroyed my marriage. Two of them.
Well, you're holding a secret and you're not allowing your spouse or whoever it may be to see the entirety of you because you're hiding something, and the thing you're hiding is causing a lot of inner turmoil and pain.
The
And
best
again, it's not allowing you to be your authentic self.
No, because the best thing the thing is, I've said to Clark, I said I've always found myself attaching to people for love because I wanted to be loved, and I
Yep.
always looked at the person to say, okay, well, I'm going to be with this person, man. Everything's going to be great. They're going to love me, and
Yeah.
no, it's the opposite. It's the opposite thing. If you do
Yeah.
not love yourself first,
Yep.
because that person is not responsible for loving who you are. They're going to love who you are, but you have to love who you are first. You
Yeah.
have to love those
They're not going to
parts.
make you love yourself.
The other person's not
Exactly.
going to is not going to make you happy. That person you're with is
Nope.
going to enhance it. When you have two happy people, then you enhance it together.
Exactly.
But when you're separated, and you still have your own life. You're still a person, and she has her own life, and she's a person. We're talking about relationships here, but
Yeah.
and you bring it together. That's great. But if I'm looking at her as for her to make me happy, doop, boop,
No, exactly.
and
No external force can make you happy.
right, and vice versa. If she's looking at you, it's not going to happen.
No, it's just like when a plane's having
Not going
problems
to.
and the oxygen mask come down. It's the first thing you're supposed to do. Put it on yourself because you can't take care of anyone else until you take care of yourself first. And that translates into life in general.
And the
So let
trans.
me ask you, when you realize like this is enough, I have to get help. How do you go about it?
So I had to sit and I had to, like I said, cry for 3 months. I didn't go anywhere. I secluded myself. I kept myself away from places, people, and then I met this one therapist who really was the catalyst to get me moving forward. It was almost like I was being called to her.
Yep.
She's a spiritual person, and that was my start with spirit, being more spiritual, and finding that place within myself. That was the start. That was the start. And then see the road to where I'm at now was bumpy because I found myself going back and drinking
Hmm.
and chasing. All right, here I am single, okay. But again, then I get involved in a relationship, and I'm going through that. But like I started with her, then I went to somebody else, and I've been with this other one now, which is great. She's great, and and she's got really great insights, and she follows all. She's seen the podcasts that I've been on and stuff like that. But it was really focusing on bringing my truth, my ugly parts out
Yep.
to deal with, to understand why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Why am I going back to doing those things? And it really came down to finally figuring it out that I needed to just sit. You need to just sit, be on your own,
Yep.
and whatever comes, comes. Don't react because people, when they're in that space and they're alone, they feel lonely.
Yeah.
It's lonely.
Two
You
different
know,
things.
they're two different things. Solitude, loneliness. I was got to the point of solitude. Like I was good on my own. Like I was happy. I finally this home I'm in. I finally feel like I'm at home. Like I have a home.
Yeah. It's a beautiful
You know,
thing.
like I'm home. Like I'm in a home. And I never had that before. And going back to my second marriage, I lived with I lived there at my ex-wife's house. I was creating a home, creating it in the sense of doing this. I mean, I redid this and I redid that. but it was external,
Hmm.
not internal.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was
100%.
external, valid, looking for that external, like, oh, I did this and I did that. And listen, I did it out of love, but I overreached. I was trying to create something without just being who I was.
Yeah.
I'm who I am right here. This is it. This is me. I'm home.
Yep.
I'm in a home that I feel at home. And I knew when I was there, and I know I didn't say this. I don't know if I did say it at Clark's, but I remember sitting in the back room of that house, and I'm like, I fucking knew it. I was like, I got to get. I don't belong here. You know, I don't feel like I'm home here.
Right.
And I know that might, if she listens to it or if she sees it, it might be upsetting, but
It's not a slight on her.
and it has nothing
No,
to do with her. I
not at
just
all.
don't feel at home within me, within
Yeah.
myself. No matter what I did, I could have bought another fucking house. I could have bought another car, went to a different restaurant, and took another trip, and wouldn't have mattered
Exactly.
until you really start to learn who you are and what makes you tick.
Yeah.
And then it got to be situationships, and I'm like getting involved, and then having sex, and then I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what am I doing? I'm like,
Hmm.
I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want to drink excessively. Do I like to drink? Yeah. I mean, I drink now. To swear to God, I have a glass of wine. I'm fucking looped. That I was known to drink a bottle of tequila, easy, easy,
Really.
no fucking problem.
Yep.
Vodka, no problem. I just didn't want to do those things. But
Yeah. Well, you
part
wake
of,
up the next day and that problem is still there.
part of the awakening is you're going to have stumbling blocks as you go, and it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
okay because when you have them, you don't keep reacting to it. You're going to stop and you're going to assess. And yeah, you may trip along again, but those trips become less and less because
Yep.
you're starting to understand that you're doing it because you're reacting on your emotion. You're reacting of not being with somebody, of being alone, not having that connection. When you can connect to yourself and be in that place, you can do you're good. You don't need anybody.
Yeah. It's huge, man, because once you have that, number one, you're developing the self awareness to everything going on, and you're understanding yourself as a person. And it's funny because people say all the time, like, I didn't know who I was. Well, when you're alone, you start getting to know yourself. I remember I got lucky. I was 18 years old. My first love, she broke up with me. My heart was broken, and I remember like hooking up with girls, and after two or three, I'm like, you know what, man, this pain's not going away by doing this. You need to be by yourself, get through this pain, process it, and get through it. And I got lucky at that, young age of 18 that I realized that I had that self awareness. Like there was no external force that is bringing you happiness. It's just like having money. Money is not bringing you happiness. If you're a happy person and you get brought, money brings you freedom and independence. But if you're happy, yeah, it's going to enhance that. If you're not, it's not going to do anything to bring you happiness. Nothing will. You have to be with yourself and learn how to be happy. Learn, if you're going through pain, if you're going through something like you're going through, you have to process that. You have to speak to someone, however you deal with it. I went through my PTSD, and psychedelic therapy is the way that I healed a large portion of my pain, ayahuasca. So, you know, I sat with that, but still, even after that, man, is integration. And, it ebbs and flows. It's not a linear thing. You just heal and that's it, you're done. No, it doesn't happen like that. And it's okay to not be okay, but just realize that you still have more work to do. Cool.
Exactly.
Do the
But
work.
that's exactly. And but I also say when you do get involved with somebody, when that someone comes, you're choosing to be with that person because they're they're mirroring they are a mirror of what you are, on how you go about and what you see and how you look at things. You have to find that person that mirrors you, because
Yeah.
when you're in that
And how do you think of
when you're
yourself?
right, when you're in this stage of growing and evolving and taking those steps, because each there's steps you go up and then sometimes there's steps you go down, but you have to ask yourself, okay, why did I go down? What can I do to, all right, and it could be something very innocent. It doesn't have to be bad. It's just like, all
Yeah.
right, what can I do? All right, what can I do here? How can I, how can I be better? What can I do better? But you're choosing who to be with people now versus just fucking people,
Yeah.
versus
Absolutely.
just having a body. And it got tiring for me.
Yeah. And if you're healed or healing, you're going to choose someone that is the same. You're not going to choose that unhealthy person. And if you're unhealthy
And that's no
and you choose
judgment.
someone, what's that?
There's no judgments against anybody. Like I'm saying, I choose, I'm with people. I'm not judging them. There is no
No.
judgments,
Yeah.
but you
Not at
just,
all.
you don't want to put yourself in that position anymore.
Exactly.
You don't want to
Yeah.
be, you know,
If they're not bringing positivity to your life, you don't need them in your life. And I don't mean in the respect that you're using people. It's that, they should be enhancing your life. Again, they're not going to make your happiness, but they should be enhancing it just like hopefully you're doing the same to them. And, you see so many times, man, your boy is with a girl and you're like, what are you doing with her, man? She is horrendous. Well, you know what? He's either not healed or his self-esteem is super low. Like he's allowing himself
he's
to be
allowing.
with someone who's down to that level, and he's going down to that level as opposed to being someone who's healthy and having someone who's up to his level.
Right.
It's two totally different things.
Yeah, totally, totally, totally different. So again, I mean, I can't say it enough. It's okay, no matter what it is, no matter what you think is terrible, that you think that you're a terrible person because of things that happened to you, and then you went out and did things that you're not happy with, or you're just stop, because it's okay. Just
Yep,
reach out and somebody will direct you to where you need to be and will help you.
exactly,
But the choice is yours.
exactly. You must raise your
Always-
hand. Me and Pasquale are not coming to your house and throwing you over our shoulders to take you to get help. No
No,
one's doing that. It does not happen like that.
because I had to do it myself. Everything
Yep.
I've done so far is myself. Is sitting into following people, listening to people, therapy. You know, listening to podcasts, listening to people that have gone through stuff, and talking. I've talked more in my life than I've ever talked. I've talked more now in my life than I've ever talked before, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
People who know me that I was not a talker. I've had people reach out to me and like, well, we always thought there was something, you weren't that sociable, you weren't, you weren't approachable. And you know what? For the most part, I wasn't. I was approachable when I drank because I was the fucking fun guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I drank and I opened up, but then when the drinking stopped and the next day it was like a fucking train wreck, I'm like, Jesus Christ. And then, what happens? You want to drink a little bit more because you're feeling like shit. So you're going to drink,
Yeah.
you know. And listen, I'm not
The
knocking
vicious
people who
cycle.
want to drink. So it's, the excessiveness was my way of dealing with a lot of shit. And
Yeah.
it wasn't just, it wasn't just the abuse. It was marital stuff. It was it was things like that. And I own it because I could have handled it in a better way, looking back now. But
Right.
listen, it happened. So
Yeah.
never
You
gonna
gotta you have
defend
to give
it.
yourself grace and forgive yourself.
Yeah, yeah, you have to,
Look how
because
far you've come.
you've I've come a long way,
Yeah.
personally, and there's still more for me to go. Still
All of
more.
us.
But
It's
the
continual.
key
It never stops until the day you die.
it's always being honest with yourself and saying, "Oh
Yep.
man, you fucked up today. You said the wrong thing, and maybe you shouldn't have said that."
Yeah,
Okay, you know,
exactly.
if
Yeah,
if
listen,
if God can give me unconditional grace and mercy every day, there's no reason why I can't. You can't give it to yourself. As long as you are aware, as long as
exactly. Yeah.
you're accountable and you see it and you make that effort to, what do you call, to try not to feel the way you do, or look at something, or tell a guy to go fuck himself because he didn't wave, or you know there's so many worse things in life. There really are.
Oh
Because
yeah.
right now, as you and I are speaking, there's shit going on. Who's trying to survive? Who's taking their last breaths? Who's going to commit
Hmm.
suicide? Who's going to, lose a parent, lose a child? I mean, that's something. I mean, a lot of the times that's the perspective I put, and how I deal with things, because I'm like, I woke up today. I'm talking. Here we are talking. I'm talking. I'm moving my arms. I'm walking. Things
Yeah.
that
It's
we
like
take for
victory,
granted,
victory, victory, victory. You're stacking them.
things we take for granted,
Exactly.
we do it every day that people can't do.
Yeah. No, life's all about perspective, and I live my life with a perspective of gratitude. Literally, thank the universe for everything it puts me through that's given me, and it could be the worst pain in the world, but there's a lesson to be learned. You may not know it. Um, I recount a story that changed my life when I was watching this podcast episode of Eddie Penny speaking. He was talking about losing his best friend, Jason Workman. There was a helicopter, call sign was Extortion 17 in Afghanistan that got shot down, killed all 38 aboard, including 17 SEALs. It was the biggest loss of community in one incident. And he was crying as he's telling the story. And I simultaneously was thinking about a 2-year-old found floating in a pool call I had 5 years before, and I lost it, bro. I started crying like a baby, and that's when I realized to get PTSD and I need help. And I realized I reestablished contact with the family. Of Dana is the young girl. She survived, and she's actually doing much, much better. And I wrote a 4-page letter to the family because there was so many different dynamics. I actually felt guilty about saving her first, and I realized 5 years later that the universe put me at that call for a reason. It literally changed the trajectory of my life, and she's saving people's lives through me now. Did not realize that then. It took 5 years to realize that. And the greatest thing that I've discovered in the past 14 months after, journeying with ayahuasca and this healing journey that I've begun is it's allowed me to become vulnerable, which I've never been able to do in my life. So I could speak to someone like you and talk about my feelings, and other men could see this and realize that it's not weakness, man. It's actually a sign of strength when you can talk about how you're feeling, because if you don't, you can't heal from the various things you're going through, man. Like you say, you have to be honest with number one, yourself. If you can't even be honest with yourself, how the fuck you ever going to do anything and heal, and be a high functioning human being? You're not. So I love the fact that I can
No,
speak openly. I've cried on podcasts, man. I'm proud of it. I would never have been able to do that before, and if I did, I'd be so embarrassed about it.
no.
But
I
like you,
mean,
being vulnerable, you're helping and changing someone's life right now by them listening to your story, brother. It's powerful.
well, that was really the purpose for me, was to really just talk about it.
Yep.
I mean, we talked about it before, and there was things that came back. I mean, like I said, I can still vividly see everything. I see it. I see what was
Yeah.
done. I still see that little kid, you know. Um, but it's a story, like you said, that has to be told, because there's many men that don't want to say it because they're too embarrassed, or they're ashamed. And I'm telling you again, don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed about.
Yeah.
Nothing. Because you
You
did
did
nothing
nothing
wrong.
wrong. Exactly.
You did
They are
absolutely
the ones. It's
nothing.
100% onus is on them, not you who suffered, you
Yeah.
know?
So that's that to me. is important because you did nothing wrong. You
Yeah,
know, nothing,
100%.
nothing at all. Really, at the end of the day, it comes down to everything falls into communication. You know,
Hmm.
in every aspect of life, communicate what it is that you want. Communicate what you need to say. Sometimes there's some things that you know it's true to a degree. Some things are just better left unsaid because it's very minuscule. Because at times something can be said and it gets 10 different people tell one person it goes to that, and that's another thing. You don't tell people everything because
No.
it's a you don't, and you just have to find that person that you can truly talk to,
Yeah.
and they could listen to you, because a lot of it sometimes is just listening. You know, Sometimes I
Yeah.
just needed to tell someone, just listen. I don't need you to say anything. I need to get it out. If I want you to
Yep.
say something, I'll ask. Not, then just let me get it out, and that's all I need. It's okay. Say that. If that's what you need, say it.
Yeah.
Because
I've literally seen a study recently where they were talking about the power of just talking about whatever problem it was you were experiencing. And I'm talking like it resolved itself just by the person talking to another person about it and giving his version of events in like 80% of the cases. So that is incredible just by talking about it. How many times that's all it took. Just them getting it off their chest and speaking about it. Think how many times in your life you've had things you speak about it, get it off your chest, like, holy shit, man, that was like 100-pound weight sitting on my chest, and you feel great.
yeah, that's exactly how I felt when I did the podcast with Clock, because here I was putting it out there to unknown, like it's out,
Everyone. Yeah.
and I was good with, I was fine with it. That's when I knew, like, all right, I know I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I knew that. I'm like, okay, this was the time to let it be, let it out, and it's been great. It's I live small.
Me too.
Less is more.
Hmm.
Do we all like having nice things? Yeah, of course we do. That's you work for it, you work hard. I don't begrudge anybody that can do that and has that. But money really isn't money, like you said, is gives you freedom, makes it easier.
Yep.
How many people do you know that have all the money in the world and they're miserable?
Exactly.
So it
Literally.
means nothing. You see people who have nothing are the happiest people in the world.
Yep.
And what we have, or what I have, 75% of the people in this world would love to have what I have, because there's people living in a fucking mud hut
Oh,
or
yeah.
sleeping, I don't know, wherever. And I used to think, going back to, I used to think that I wasn't enough, or I didn't have enough, or this is enough. I have enough.
Yep.
I'm grateful. I'm
That's a
great.
life of gratitude.
I'm grateful for everything, the ups, downs, the ugly, the bad, all of it,
Yeah.
because it led me here. It led me to this place. So if I can, anybody can.
Exactly.
From a billionaire to a fucking regular Joe.
Yep.
Doesn't
No,
matter.
it's the truth.
With two people, we're all gonna go. We all came in the same way. We're all leaving the same way.
Exactly. No
From the
one's getting
million,
out of this game alive.
from the millionaire to nobody has anything, because you're gonna right, maybe the millionaire is gonna have a nice fucking mausoleum,
Yeah.
and then the guy that
Doesn't mean
doesn't have
shit.
anything is gonna go to fucking Potter's Field. But
Yep.
guess what? You ain't here no more.
Exactly. It means nothing in the scheme of
But
things.
really, in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing. It just makes it easier, and you have some more freedom. So that, when I say I want to better myself in that regard, is to have that freedom,
Yeah.
not to, throw it in people's faces, look at me like no. If the good man upstairs blesses me with something like that, great, because I know what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to help others with it,
Yeah.
just like I try to do now in this way,
Yep.
you know.
Same thing with me.
So, but
All right, brother.
that's it.
It's been an awesome conversation. Like I said, I guarantee someone's life was changed when they watch this episode because they've been suffering, and now hopefully this spurs them to get help. If someone wants to reach out and speak to you personally, how would they do so?
You give them, if they reach out to you or whatever, you can give them my number.
Or
They
you just give me your Instagram name,
so
bio will be in the links will be in the bio.
so it's what the hell? Good question. What the fuck is my Instagram? Imagine I gotta look up my Instagram.
That's great.
So I don't even know what the fuck it is.
You know the age of
Oh,
the
so
interviewees when they don't know their own Instagram.
yeah. So my Instagram goes under PASQNY 757575. That's Instagram. On Facebook, it's just I'm public, so it's my name, Pasquale Sementilli.
Perfect.
You'll
So,
you'll you'll see it. You'll see it there. So
and again, all the links will be in the bio, guys. So anyone that needs to or feels that they want to speak to Pasquale, he'd be happy to speak to you. Help you navigate these crazy waters that you're in right now. But as you can see, there is help. You can heal. There's nothing extraordinary about Pasquale or myself. We've both gone through our individual healing journeys, come out the other side. So if we can do it, you guys can certainly do it. I promise you. Pasquale, I want to thank you for everything, for opening yourself up, speaking about this. Again, it is, it's just humbling to have guys like you on who are so noble in their purpose to help others. Truly, I love it.
no, my pleasure. My pleasure. The purpose is to help guys and gals, anybody, anybody.
Absolutely.
There's people out there that will listen, will help you, will let you navigate. But I'm going to leave you with this. It has to start with you.
Yep.
You have to make the choice and stick with it, even when it's hard. You have to be accountable and you have to be responsible. And when you do that, you chip away and you'll get there. It's not a 1, 2 month, 3 month, 6 month thing. It doesn't work like that.
No.
There's always setbacks and it's okay. But accountability and responsibility is the key. And make that choice.
Perfectly said. All right, guys. I hope you like this podcast. If you do, please hit like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Take care, guys. Pasquale, again, thanks, brother.